Greetings once again, High Railers. I know it's been a little while, but we're back, and today we've got a little project video where we're going to see about adding some lighting to some old Minitrix F7s. Stay tuned. If you were a model railroader in N-scale in the 1970s and 1980s, odds are you had a Minitrix F9, or as the body shell indicates, it's more like an F7, maybe a little bit oversized. Remember, scale wasn't always important back then. These were introduced in 1966 and originally imported by Aurora and the postage stamp trains line, and ultimately were also imported by Concord in a variety of paint schemes that Minitrix didn't offer. I've got a couple here that I've custom painted, but for the most part, these are original equipment. They were introduced in 1966 and they continued to produce them until 1999. So that's 33 years worth of production. So if you're having a hard time finding parts to keep yours running, you're probably just not trying hard enough. There's got to be a million of these out there. You can usually find them in the familiar Minitrix package in the green-yellow box, and they were also available in postage stamp packaging. They came in train sets in the little bookshelf style box, as well as later in the Concord packaging. Today we're going to work on restoring this Trix F7. The Minitrix F7 was first imported by Aurora and was part of the many train sets that people started their hobby with back in the day. I've got a bunch of them. I've custom painted a few, like the Western Maryland one you just saw go by. You'll also see that I improved it by adding a nice bright LED headlight. Today we're going to show you how I did that. And we're going to start with this old beater that I picked up in a large lot of other stuff. You can see the paint on the engine is a little rough. I think ultimately we're going to end up putting it through the paint shop as well. So let's open her up and see what we can do to get some light in there. Now, the old original equipment headlight wasn't bad, but it doesn't really direct light out the headlight lens. And this is due to the setup that has the little incandescent bulb poked through a slot that actually directs the light down instead of out. So it does reflect around a little bit to bounce around, but as you can see, it doesn't really direct it out the headlight. So adding the LED will correct that. And on the early models that were imported by Aurora, having a headlight was actually optional. You would pay extra to have a headlight in your locomotive. So as we get started, I guess it's important to point out the things that we're going to need. First, of course, there's the LED that we're going to be installing. Second, there's a little bit of heat shrink tubing, which comes in very handy. Some very thin wire solder. We're going to be doing a little bit of soldering. Some fine point tweezers are always helpful to have around if you need them. Some needle nose pliers for the bigger things, and of course your hobby screwdriver. And you'll notice I've got a cardboard box on the workbench. I find this is very helpful to keep these little screws and springs and so forth from getting too far away from me while I'm working. Pretty handy tip there. Of course, the other thing you'll need is coffee. Preferably served in this just friggin' run trains, man coffee mug. This is my Pennsylvania one. Now, if you're starting with a locomotive that had a headlight, all you have to do is take all of that rig off and then snip the wire back so that you have that lead that goes down to the PC board that delivers power to the motor as well as to the light. On this one, you can see how we had to do that. The important thing here is the wiper plates have to be isolated because you're going to have a little solder blob that you didn't have before. Here's a look at the PC board from underneath that collects the power from the trucks and delivers it to the motor and to the headlight. You'll notice that the one side has a wiper that makes contact with the frame, and that's the one that is going to be powering one leg of the LED, and then the other one is isolated from that by way of these wipers. And when you look at the underside, you can see the little wipers on the trucks that can contact that, and that's what delivers power from the trucks to the locomotive. And you're going to want to solder your wire to that isolated strip that reaches those contact pads. So once you have that done and you thread the wire up next to the motor so that it's up on top, the next thing to do is going to be to prepare your LED. Here's a couple of LEDs. The orange one is sort of my example. We're not going to be using that one, but you can see one leg of the LED is a bit longer, and that's the one that we're going to be attaching our resistor to. This one has been shaped so that it will fit into the locomotive. The hook that I bent into the one side is going to actually attach to the mounting screw here on the keeper plate. Okay, so we've got our LED. It's all shaped and ready to go. We're going to trim the long leg back so that we can have room to apply our solder. Get back into the keeper plate. Hopefully you can see this around my big hand. Okay, now with that in place, the next step, bend this up a little bit so it's not into the gear. All right, now the next thing we want to do is install a little bit of the shrink wrap tubing. We're going to put that here on the leg. That's going to get right there. That's going to get the resistor, which we've got here. Get our solder. I don't know much about, I don't know enough about resistors other than through a process of trial and error figuring out which one works for the voltage that we're working with. I found this particular, let's see if we can see it here, there we go. This particular size seems to work well with the 12 volt system. Your power pack usually generates up to 14 volts. So if you're able to read those little stripes, it's been explained to me over and over again, but I was an English major, so it's all pretty much lost on me. I find that if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, then I need to try something different. Anyway, we're going to get this the rest of the way hooked up. Okay, so then we want to take another piece of heat shrink. And we'll slide this down go. And using our tweezers, we can hold this in place. Okay, drag that in place. There we go. So we slide that heat shrink tubing up so that it actually nests onto the resistor. Double check, make sure we didn't lose anything. And then using the soldering pencil, we heat shrink that down to where that's all in place. And with that done, we can test it, and it looks like we have success. Okay, so for the final act, we'll take a little piece of this black heat shrink tubing. It's about 1/8 inch in diameter. We're going to trim it back enough so that it covers the LED, the back parts of the LED, as well as the line there. Now, because of the diameter of the LED itself, we're going to want to stretch this out a little bit. I do that by poking the needle nose pliers in and give it a little bit of a stretch. And do it on both sides. Okay. And now that makes the diameter big enough that it can slide easily over the wire and the LED itself. We'll put that on there. And that gives us a nice little collar, a sleeve around the LED that will help direct the light out the front and not all over the place. And I'm thinking with the light boards there, what we could probably do is take a little trim on the bottom, like yay, so that a little bit more of the light goes down into that front bay. And just like that, I have to stretch it out some more. Okay. There we go. This will probably all end up on the cutting room floor. If not, sorry about all that time you're wasting. So, okay, now it's on and in place. You can see the underside of the LED will flare down into the bay where that'll light the number boards, and the front will direct out, and then hopefully we don't get a lot of whitewash into those wonderful gray windows on the locomotive. We'll reassemble it and give it a try on the layout. And here we are now for the moment of truth. A nice bright light in the headlight. Number boards are all lit up. No flare coming through the windshields. She's off and running. Looks a whole lot better, doesn't it? So there you have it, high railers. Hope you enjoyed the program. Maybe you learned a few things. And maybe I've tempted you to get one of those old dinosaurs out of the cabinet and put her back on the road. Until next time, happy high railing.